What's up, good people? My name's AJ. I am an associate at a private wealth management firm and also a CFA charter holder. And today I'm talking about how to land an internship in the finance industry and more specifically in wealth management or financial advising. I think I might have an interesting perspective on this one because getting my first internship and also kind of in combination with that job in finance was probably the hardest thing I've done so far in my career related experience outside of the CFA program. It was especially difficult for me for a couple of reasons. I had a smaller market that I wanted to be working in, so a specific industry, and in my case it was private wealth management, which is more so what I'm talking about here today, but also really just a couple cities that I definitely wanted to land in, which are not major financial centers, so there's less opportunity available there. And then also just I didn't have a high GPA or a ton of experience, really much experience at all in the industry. I think I put together a pretty good resume in spite of those things, but it still proved to be a pretty big challenge for me. In addition to those factors, part of the difficulty I had too was that in the market that I was looking in, most of the businesses operating in it are small businesses, smaller firms, or franchises of wirehouses, broker dealers. So there wasn't a corporate recruitment process, and because of that, a lot of the firms didn't have job postings listed. So I always talk about how many applications I did throughout college, and I think the number is 124. I had an Excel document with every place I applied to, but I would always tell people too that half of the jobs that I applied to were not active job listings. It was literally me looking for firms in the area, and I narrowed it down to like I think 10 or 12 that looked like the best fit to me in the industry that I wanted to work in. And now I'm talking senior year of college, basically, when I was looking for a full-time position. But I used these same strategies when I was going for an internship too, just to a slightly lesser extent. So when you're trying to get a job with a group that doesn't have anything listed, basically what you're doing is calling or emailing them or trying to connect with other employees internally that you learn from their website, connect with them on LinkedIn and send them messages, introducing yourself and asking if you can get lunch with them just to talk or if anything's available. So it's going to be much different if you're looking for a bigger bank that has an asset management arm, of course, or a regional broker dealer with a major financial advising office. Those businesses would have a more formal and active recruiting strategy in most cases, but if you're doing something similar to what I did, which was with a smaller business, their partner owned and operated entities, and you kind of have to get in the ear of those individuals to get a chance to have an interview or get a job with them. And just the last point I'll make about that bigger business model too is that the people who are landing those jobs, they can be more competitive too in some instances, depending on what the job is. But a lot of universities, and mine was in this category, that have really concentrated finance programs. When I say concentrated, I mean they're concentrated in placing kids in jobs. They're going to have pretty active recruitment opportunities. So recruiters are on campus a lot. There's a lot of job fairs, and the top, at least in my case, the kids with the highest GPAs and the kids most involved in the business clubs, that information was kind of directly fed to the hiring team at some of the bigger banks and asset managers that are looking for younger kids to bring on board. So if you're in that category, this video isn't so much for you. 3.8, 3.9 GPA at a top-ranked finance university, getting actively recruited into a top-tier finance role, that's a different story. I'm again speaking more directly towards medium to small businesses in maybe not business-centric markets or finance-centric markets. How do you land a job at one of these places that you may very well want to work at, but is not necessarily actively hiring anyone at the moment? And first piece of encouragement I would give you is that it's very much possible, and I can tell you firsthand that a lot of these smaller RIAs and franchises of broker dealers always have spots they need filled. Now, the really small offices like one man, like Ed Jones, financial advisors, they're probably not going to be hiring in too many cases, but 5 to 50 advisors in an office, that type of size at an RAA or an independent group, they're almost always going to have some type of position that needs to be filled, and in the firm that I work, interns are always accepted. You could run into some instances, and I'm sure you will, because I'm sure I ran into this, where they just don't want an intern, and that's fine too. But my point is just that they're out there, even though they're not necessarily hiring, and it's your job to find those groups if you really want to land an internship within a firm where you can gain a lot of experience and knowledge about the industry. So basically, my advice is to hustle, 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 hustle. And there are pretty great YouTubers out there that will kind of bring home that message. So I really like Gary Vee. Grant Cardone is a really cool personality. I'm sure there are others too that aren't coming to mind for me right now, but what I mean is that you need to be doing everything you can to get in as many people's ears as possible, or I guess in front of their computer screens in some cases. I mentioned them real quickly earlier, but there are 3 good ways to do it. So phone calls, emails, and LinkedIn messages. You need to be utilizing all 3 of those and as often as possible. People have asked me in terms of their resume or cover letter, what exactly do they need? I would tell you you're always going to need a really well put together resume, and there are a lot of resources online on how to put together a good resume. Don't make it 2 pages. In finance, I don't know much about other industries and hiring through those industries, but in finance, you should never have a 2-page resume. There's no reason for it. It's the only resume principle that I'm certain about in this industry is to stick to 1 page, but you should have a good resume. You don't need a cover letter for most of these opportunities. If you're doing a formal job application through a website that is actively hiring, a lot of times they'll ask you to attach a cover letter, and then in that instance, of course. But when you're doing what I'm talking about, you just want to drop these people a resume when they ask for it. In some cases, you're just going to be asking for 10 minutes to get coffee, which is what I was doing a lot of the time too, and had a little bit of success with that. So you want to be doing things like Google searches, but some of the firms won't be paying Google enough to be found very high on your search results. So another thing I would do would be go to Google Maps, and literally all the roads where there are businesses in the couple of cities that I wanted to be working in. I am zooming in on Google Maps, looking at the names of all these businesses. If they look like anything that might be related to investments, going to their websites and learning more about them. And you can find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. Now, which ones of these will actually be applicable to the specific field you might want to be working in is going to be a smaller amount for sure. So you'll whittle them down, but as much information as you can get about what are the businesses in that area or field that you want to be working in. Now, of course, this isn't going to work in New York or Chicago because there are skyscrapers full of tenants that are possibly operating in the same industry. But you could use a similar principle there, which is LinkedIn networking or again Google searches to find as many businesses as you can that you could potentially apply to. So you make a list. I saved mine all in Excel, and also as many individuals' names and phone numbers that you can get if you can make any connections on LinkedIn, or of course if you have friends or family that know people working in the industry, leverage your personal contacts as well to get more information. But eventually you're going to want to lay all this out on an Excel document, and that's the document that I talked about with 124 lines. Again, half of them being actually formal applications and the other half being me emailing LinkedIn messages or phone calling saying, hey, this is what I do, my name's AJ, this is the industry I want to work in your area. Can I drive up there and get a coffee with you? Which for me, it was like 2 hours from where I was going to college. It doesn't always have to be a request for a personal meeting either. You could just be dropping your resume en masse. And if you have an Excel doc of 300 or 500 potential job sites, then that might work for you. But I think it was relatively important for me to be able to get either phone conversations or face-to-face meetings with some of the folks that I was most excited about potentially interning for. So I had meetings where I would make this 2-hour drive to one of the towns I wanted to work in and sit down with a partner, and they would go, we don't really offer any internship positions here. You would really just be scanning papers, but thanks for stopping by. And then I would go home and leave and think, man, this person doesn't even know that I just, made a trip out here. I'm in college, got no money for gas. But you're going to have mixed results. So I don't want to make this sound like something that's going to be a quick solution. I think I was going at it pretty hard for about 4 months, where I would spend a couple hours each day either phone calling, emailing, or LinkedIn messaging to some of the different contacts that I would potentially want to intern for. So I think I could say more about that whole process, but really just what I want to do in this video is communicate the idea to you all. Get a ton of contacts, reach out to them through different various ways as much as you can, and try to set some face-to-face opportunities, either as more of a formal interview or just an introductory meeting, so that later you could get in for a regular interview, and let them know that you want to be interning in wealth management or whatever other field of finance this may apply to, and really start to build a network. So for me, in the internship that I actually ended up working in, was through a LinkedIn message. One of the partners had gone to the same college that I was currently attending, which was kind of my connection. So I think I sprinkled in some, if I noticed a connection to someone, I would add that into the message I would send them. And I scheduled a day for a formal interview. So this one wasn't just grabbing coffee, which some of them ended up being that way, but the job I actually landed in, they said, yeah, we'll entertain a conversation about an intern. They hadn't had interns before. They weren't looking for an intern, but they liked me, from my couple messages I sent. And then once I got the day to go up and meet with them all, and when I say them all, I think I met with the 5 partnered advisors there. I interviewed pretty well, so that's probably a whole separate video. But you need to be personable. You need to know what you're talking about. You need to be able to convince them why you want to be doing the job that they are. You want to be working in their business and what you can do for them. Because in this case, they had no internship program, so they were like, what type of work do you want to be doing? So I had all that prepared beforehand. I knew what I was hopefully going to learn from a summer internship. All in all, I was super relieved. I was really happy. It was a smaller RIA firm right downtown in the city that I like to be working with. I ended up not working with them full time. They've since given me a few offers to try to come back there. And it was really a stock picking model, so it wasn't exactly what I wanted to be doing long term. I ended up, again, not going back for that reason, but great people, and it was a great experience having that internship. Definitely helped out myself when I was. So I guess the gist of my video is hustle harder than the other people who want the same jobs as you. You gotta work, and in this case is just making connections. So you're gonna go weeks at a time where you're working an hour or a few hours a day for weeks, and no one's gonna message you back. No one's gonna invite you to come out. Again, I think my number was 124 applications for full-time jobs. And I ended up getting 2 or 3 offers and then settled on one. So it's an inefficient process, definitely an inefficient process, but one that will probably work out if you keep at it long enough, and will be very beneficial to you in the long term. So I hope that's helpful. I hope this information can help someone get a job that they're really looking for, or an internship that they're really looking for, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.